these webinars have been recorded. And there's a place, if you didn't know this, there's a place you can access all of these recordings. And they're just a wonderful resource, wealth of information from all of the different coaches. And as you may know, Udacity has decided to end the one-on-one career coaching services as of the 24th of March. And so that and the hotline, let's see, the career channel hotline is going away, but you will have access to all of the webinars that have been recorded. I actually did this webinar back in October and forgot to record it, so I asked to do it again. It was a fairly popular webinar, and it was one of my favorites to present. So that's why you see me here today. And so anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. This webinar is a little bit heavy in terms of content, but I would invite you to please ask questions. I much prefer an interactive session or make points that you'd like to make. So I'm going to go ahead and admit the rest of the people from the waiting room. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, one other thing, you may have seen it in the post. If you've been looking for a career coaching session, Brett Ellis, one of the career coaches, just opened some sessions for this weekend. So since those services are coming to an end, I suggest maybe that you, if you're looking for a spot and haven't found one, check back daily, because sessions can be added every day in that week or in future weeks. So I know that the coaches are doing their best to open up as many sessions as they can. So check back daily for a spot. Okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. But like I said, please interject if you have a comment to make or a question, and we'll move through the material pretty quickly. I will have some handouts, two pieces of content that I will have emailed to you this week, and I'll talk about what those are when we get there. So a little bit about me. Most of my background is in human resources and coaching. I was in human resources for, just a second, I'm having a hard time. I was in human resources for over 35 years, retired, made a career transition myself to semi-retired about 4 years ago now, and 3 years ago. And I've been coaching for approximately 6 years, and I love the coaching. And so I work part-time and I'm retired the rest of the time. And so I know what it's like to go through career changes and transitions, even though that one was maybe slightly different. This topic is near and dear to my heart. And one of the reasons is because I look back and reflect on my career and realize that I could have done a better job planning all along. Now, as with most of you, things worked out for me. And I think that was one of the reasons I didn't plan, is I was generally happy in my career. Almost any job I did, from office assistant to benefits manager to director of human resources, I enjoyed every one of those things. And sometimes I felt like those things just kind of came my way. But as I reflect back, I think there were some reasons those things happen. So if you're someone who believes in fate and it'll all work out, I don't disagree with that. I think hold on to those beliefs, but I would say that there are some reasons we're going to talk about today to actually plan regardless whether you're happy or not. And some of you, because you're at Udacity, have consciously decided to make a change and you're upgrading your skills, or you might love the job you're in and you just want to build your skills and keep up with technology, all admirable things. So anyway, just a second here. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Tell me why you're here today. I'd love to hear that. For some reason you signed up.
I was hoping to get some direction out of my career search because I'm kind of casting a broad net right now.
Okay.
I don't really know exactly how to approach it.
Okay.
And I could use a little guidance.
Okay. Okay. I think there may be something in here today that will help you with that, I hope. Thank you for sharing that, John. Someone else wanted to speak? Is that Harvey?
Yes.
Hi, Harvey.
Yeah, this is Harvey. I've been out of the workforce for about 10 years, been a stay-at-home dad. And I've always wanted to get into programming or get paid for it. I do some have been doing some programming as a hobby. So I've taken the first step of taking a basic Udacity course in programming just to demonstrate that I do have the ability. That I'm going to take another course, an intermediate level or advanced course later to hopefully launch myself into some type of programming, either looking at web development right now, or my heart really is in cybersecurity, but Udacity doesn't offer a lot in those regards. So the reason I'm here is to basically refresh the planning, the career planning, so that I can focus myself directly in a very specific path. So that's what I've come here is to hear your insights. You've been a coach and you've been in human resources in this business for quite some time. So I'm here to learn from you.
Okay, well, I think we are going to talk about some things like focus and direction and opportunities. So anyway, thank you for sharing that. Great. Anyone else care to share before we move on?
Okay. Hi, Diane. This is Yana.
Yes. Hi, Yana.
Hey, I am currently looking for a job, and it's sometimes very frustrating. So I would love to, or what I'm looking to like find or hear in this webinar is whether I'm doing things right, or some new tips and ideas how to approach the whole process of looking for new opportunities.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Again, I think we'll touch on most of these in a general way at the end if we have time, or if I didn't answer your question directly, then feel free to email me after the session and we'll have a conversation and get those questions answered. But all right, with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the content that I have for you today. Here's our agenda. And we're going to talk, I'm going to go ahead and close this. Bear with me a second, Mike. There you go. Okay, so we're going to talk about regular and intentional career planning. We're going to talk about, envisioning the possibilities, a little bit maybe about, like John has said, he's cast a pretty broad net, and that's actually a good thing, at least to start, and to keep open to possibilities. So we'll talk about that. There are some key things that I love to see people make a habit in their life, and networking is one of those. Actually, planning for your career is another habit that I think serves us well if we make it a habit, a regular attended to event. We're going to talk about keeping things updated and how it's, a little bit obvious, but it's easier to do that as you go along, and rather than waiting until you have to update and refresh your resume and then you forget everything you've done. So anyway, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about things like practicing and getting used to change, and then have a closing and see if we can answer any questions at the end. So let's go ahead and move on. Bear with me just a second. I'm going to move this over here. All right. Okay. So why is this important? I'd like to hear your thoughts. And maybe you could even tell me if anyone does regular career planning, and if it's regular, how often do you visit it? And why do you do it? Thoughts?
This is Harvey. While I was working, I did plan my career. Tried to have a goal of where I wanted to go next, what I was looking for next, and I did that throughout throughout my work life. And to be honest, it wasn't. I don't know that was very intentional. It was just kind of having an idea what I wanted to do and looking for opportunities in those areas. And as you said earlier, things just worked out. So I need to be a little more, since I've been out of the workforce for so long, I need to be a lot more intentional about it. So.
Sure. Okay. And when I say intentional, I don't mean that there is a right and wrong way. So the things I'm going to cover today are just ideas for you to consider. There are things I've left out, I'm sure. And you can certainly add those. Any other thoughts about why this is important? Okay, well, a couple things that I think is that a mantra I like to live by is what gets talked about gets done. And sometimes it's about what gets written down gets done. It depends on the person, but I think it's really important to be prepared. Things happen to change over time. That's just the natural course of things. And sometimes these changes are we consider them positive, and sometimes they're changes we don't want, right? Employers change or reorganizations occur. And so, being ready for the unexpected is one of the primary reasons that I recommend that people, be intentional about this and be prepared. But an even better one is to be ready to take advantage of a new opportunity that comes your way. And I would say I was not so good about this. There were things that I could have better prepared myself for when I moved into a leadership role. I always said I didn't want to be in a leadership role. And then lo and behold, I ended up there. And I honestly could have done more to shadow others, envision myself in that kind of role, prepare myself, maybe study a little bit more about that. There was a lot I could have done. It would have made it a little bit easier for me. So it's really about not being reactionary and being proactive. And then the word intention is important. And why is that important? John.
I think intention is important in kind of not having a direction that you're going in and why you're going that direction, as opposed to just applying for any job or taking any opportunity that comes your way.
Absolutely. Having a purpose, a plan, something that's specific. And I don't mean to suggest that you can't change your mind over time. You absolutely can. This has got to be a very fluid process, because our desires change, our passions change, we learn new things. But being intentional and specific in the moment, and that's why you revisit it regularly. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and move on and get a little bit deeper into this content. These are some things that I like to include in any career plan. And the first one is really about, and actually I think I have slides on each one of these, is really assessing the current situation. Okay. And to do this, it's sort of about evaluating where you're at right now and doing this regularly. Someone asked me in the last time I did this session, how regularly? And I just said, I think that it should be revisited at least once a year. But honestly, the ideal would be to have checkpoints throughout the year, whether that's 3 times a year or every quarter, just to check in. You don't even have to, once you get the plan figured out, kind of like what are you going to do to keep your plan up to date, you can just check in put it on your calendar and check in every quarter and just take a look and what have you done, and add some things to your portfolio or your folder or whatever about your accomplishments. But this slide is really about sort of an honest assessment of, how are you doing in your current role, if you have a current role, or whatever you're doing right now, even if you're not employed or you're doing something on the side. This is an honest assessment of from your perspective of how are you feeling about this role? Is it challenging you enough? Are you learning? Are you growing? Are you in the flow most of the time? Anybody not know what I mean about being in the flow, in the zone? Raise your hand if you know what I mean. Okay. Okay, what this is for me is when it doesn't feel like work, I'm in the zone. And you know, I've never had a job where I was in the zone all the time. I'm not even in that now as a retiree working part-time. It's about spending a lot of time in that zone where you love it so much, or you are getting a lot of satisfaction and it's challenging you at the right level. And so you have a good amount of your time. You wake up in the morning and you look forward to doing what you do. So that's the ideal. Sometimes we go through periods where we don't have that. So an honest and fair assessment about where are you now, okay? The other thing is to do your own performance assessment, okay? You're gonna have supervisor feedback. You're gonna have a coworker feedback, maybe. You're gonna maybe know where you need to brush up on your technical and soft skills. But things like, at what level am I contributing in this role I'm at now? And really the honest assessment of your performance. You know, regardless of what your supervisor has told you in the past, you know, you need to weigh the facts and the evidence. And here's a little thing I wrote up that kind of walks us through what you might say to yourself. I am a business analyst at a top tier tech company. My supervisor's feedback is that I am doing a very good job. I have great relationships with my team, as evidenced by the fact that they come to me with questions fairly often. I don't think I'm contributing as much as I could be, as I am a bit shy and I have a hard time interjecting my opinions or ideas in a group. I have about 80% of the technical skills I need to be successful in this current role. The skills I am lacking are this and that, whatever that might be. Anyway, the idea here is that you would have this kind of self-talk conversation with yourself. And you know, if you're a person that recalls content best by writing it down first, then you write it down, or you write down some bullet points of where you think you are, okay? And this will help you analyze kind of the skill building piece of, well, it helps two things. It helps the skill building. It also helps you decide, am I in the right role? Am I really kind of challenged by and enjoying my role enough? And, you know, the weighting of those factors is going to depend on your own personal, professional values. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Any questions before we move on about that? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So the other one is assessing. Oh, I guess I just did this. Sorry. Assessing the levels of satisfaction. What I gave you was kind of the lead in to that, but I have a whole list of questions, and this is one of the handouts I'm going to send you. After the session, I'll have somebody send it out this week. And these are open-ended questions to ask yourself about your level of satisfaction. And again, written responses are sometimes good, at least in bullet form. They are questions like, what is going well for me in my current job or career? Okay. You don't have to write these down because I'm going to send them to you. Also, this is going to be recorded, so you can always go back and listen to it. What are 3 things I really love about what I'm doing? Okay. What are my key strengths, and how could these be utilized how are these being utilized in my current role? Okay. And there's so many questions. I've just given you a few. You can come up with some more on your own. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, how satisfied overall am I in my current job, career, however you want to ask that question? And then, if I could not continue in this role for any reason, what else would I love doing? And then again, other questions that you can think of. Any questions come to mind that you ask yourself when you do this? Okay, if you think of something later, you can interject. Okay, so here's one that may help a couple of you who answered the question. You know, I like to encourage my clients, my students, to dream big, okay? And to keep a mindset of dreaming big and dreaming often. And of course, you could use this in any part of your life. It doesn't have to just be about your career. But this is somewhat an exercise. And I like to suggest that people do a little bit of meditation or relaxation or just deep breathing, staying present in the moment right before they do this exercise. It's a brainstorming exercise. And what's the number one rule about brainstorming?
There are no bad ideas.
There are no bad ideas. And you don't evaluate it first, right? Absolutely. Thank you, Harvey. Perfect. Okay. All right. Anybody else have a rule about brainstorming they like? Okay, so here are the brainstorming questions. Actually, maybe I should add those too. I'll try to remember. They're somewhat similar to what I put on the previous slide. But if I could do anything else besides what I am doing now, what would that be? These are some things you can use for your brainstorming exercise. And if you could not fail, if there were no mistakes in life, which I tend to believe is true most of the time, what job or career would you have right now? Okay. Is this resonating with you, Harvey, given the question that you're asking?
Yeah, this is good.
Okay.
It's good. It's all a good refresher.
Okay, you've probably done some of this already, right? Good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, and as I dream about my future career, in what ways am I limiting myself? Okay, because we tend to do that, right? We think, well, I'm not good at that, or I might not like that. I had a client the other day that said they were leading a team and they said, I don't think I'm a good leader. And of course, we were at the end of the session, so we didn't get too far on that coaching, but this is a primary type of topic where using a coach can help. Really teasing out how you're limiting yourself. And really asking, I'd ask questions like, why do you say that? What do you like about it? What do you don't like about it? What if you were better than you thought? What do your subordinates think about you as a leader? So there's all kinds of questions you can ask yourself about ways that you're limiting. And so that's something I would encourage you to really give some thought to. You might love to do something and you're evaluating already by saying, but I can't do that. And so the question to ask yourself is, why can't you do that? And what makes you think that? So, okay. And so choose to remove that limitation for this exercise. Just say, if that were not a limitation, then what would I do? Okay, so you're not going to evaluate your answers right away. You're going to make a long list and just go as far as you can. Just keep going until you can't think of anything else. Okay, don't try to tie it to your strengths and your current skills, but do think about what you'd love doing. Do think about aligning it with something that you feel like you'd be so passionate about, it wouldn't even feel like work. You can do this closed-eyed or open-eyed. Sometimes it's hard for people to get started, so I recommend you use a timer. That's called the Pomodoro technique, where you just set a timer for 10 minutes, 15, 20, just to get started, and you stick with it. Sometimes it takes just 5 minutes to get started, and then you're in the flow and you're into the exercise. Then reset it for another 10, 15, whatever it helps to keep you focused. Make bulleted notes. It doesn't have to be pretty. These are for you, as long as you can read it. Okay, and keep all the notes over time. You can reflect back. I like to recommend that people get themselves some form of a notebook. And this is your planning notebook. It's your dream notebook. It's a place you can write things down, ideas. You can make checklists. You can just journal about your career. And then that gives you an opportunity now to kind of prioritize and evaluate. And so if having a job and a career that you love is important to you, then that might be like your number one value. So as you go through this list of things, before you go through and evaluate, make sure you have kind of your top 3 values. What are the most important things to you about working? It might be family flexibility, having a job that has that kind of flexibility. It might be, for some people, it's prestige and professional recognition. The other things that are high on many people's list is compensation levels, or just, putting my talents and skills to the best use. So that's another thing that you can do in this. And I recommend you do that before you evaluate your ideas. Okay. Any questions so far, or things that we need to clear up? Confusion? Okay. Okay. Don't delete any possibilities, but you can put them in order in terms of priorities after you've kind of clarified your values. All right. Any other value statements that you might have that are important to you in the career, having the career of your dreams? I threw out a few. I'd like to hear from a few of you one thing that you value about that's important to you when you choose a career.
For me, it's a certain level of autonomy in what I do, being able to make my own decisions.
Great. Yeah, that's a good one. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Harvey. For me, it's just that my work is contributing to a greater good.
Greater good. Yeah, I hear that often from Udacity students. The autonomy is a big one too in the tech industry, honestly. Anybody else? Those of you who are muted, if you want to type it in the chat, that'd be somebody seconded that. Great. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to move on just so we can get through all the material. But so again, you're gonna order these things in the order of priority. Then you might go back through and decide, okay, I have 2 or 3 things here that are kind of top priorities in terms of possible career paths or next jobs for me, or future jobs. Hopefully you have short-term and long-term, and you go through maybe and just decide, and there's no exact science to this. You can make this up, whatever seems logical to you. But I want you to identify what might be a most realistic short-term path or job or role for you. And something that might get you to the next most likely and achievable, like something that would get you closer to your 3 to 5 year desired goal. Okay. And these are things you're going to write down on your SMART goal plan that we're going to talk about in a minute. Okay. So you're thinking short term, long term, and mid range in terms of priorities, and don't feel locked in because you are in charge of this. You're driving this. And you can change your mind, okay? The point is to just get a snapshot in time kind of perspective on, what would really light your fire in terms of your career, the excitement around your career. Okay, all right, we're gonna move on to SMART goals, and I'm sure many of you have heard this before. Anybody wanna give me your experience with SMART goals or give me your take on what they are, share with the group? If you've used them, raise your hand. If you haven't, that's okay too. Okay, Harvey and John have used SMART goals. Okay, give me one.
I've forgotten what SMART, I've used it in the past, but it's been so long, I've forgotten what SMART stands for.
Okay. Okay. All right. Can you think of, anybody think of one? It's an acronym actually. And there are variations. People use different terms for the acronyms, quite honestly. Mine will look different to you probably than what you've seen before, or the same. John, anything you want to share there? Okay. All right. Well, go ahead.
Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time constrained.
Got it. Yeah, that is one version of it. I think I have most of those on the next. Let's just go to the next slide, see how close they are. Think, what did you have for our realistic, right? Is that what you said? Okay.
Yeah, I said realistic.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we're pretty close. Again, it doesn't really matter, whatever works for you. So when you do your SMART goals, you can adapt other acronyms. You know, you want to get the gist of this. The point is being specific. You know, we can say, okay, in 5 years, I want to have a job that pays really well and I have lots of flexibility and autonomy. Okay, how specific is that? Okay, you're kind of talking at a values level, which is good. It's a high level place to start, but it's going to be really hard for you to focus and narrow down your steps if you don't take it a step further. And that's why that brainstorming exercise is so important. Okay, framed by your values. And what you will see on the handout I give you is just one template, the one that I like to use that looks short-term and long-term, and being specific about your goals. More specific would be that I plan to be the language is important too. In 1 year, I will be in a data analyst role, working remotely for a top tier tech firm. Or I might even say I'm going to be at, I don't know, Google or Amazon or whatever. That's even more specific, right? Again, the point is you can change your plan. You might end up somewhere different, but if you don't get specific, it's really hard to know, you know, it can feel overwhelming, all right? And then measurable, you know, how are you going to know when you were successful? And that's all that is how will you know when you've arrived? Okay, it might be a quantity kind of measurement, and that's fine. I'm going to, you know, work on these 3 skills, and to do that, I'm going to take 4 courses in this area, and I'm going to finish it by such and such a date. And that is very specific and it's measurable. Okay, and then you want to check, is that achievable? As John said, sometimes people prefer to use the word realistic. I have a hard time seeing the difference between achievable and realistic. I think they're different though, for most people. For me, they're not, and that's why I chose to use this. Okay, so is it possible for me to achieve that in that short amount of time? And is it realistic, if you'd like to use that for your R words, that I can do this? Is this a realistic goal? I always like to check and say, is my goal or are my steps relevant for the goal I'm trying to achieve? And are they going to give me a result? Okay, can I complete that task and will I see progress towards my result? And then are they time oriented? And you'll see on the page I'm going to put up next that we always use milestones. Okay, you might start with a 5-year plan, but then you back and you kind of start with the end in mind. Stephen Covey, popular for saying that. I love that thing that he said, always begin with the end in mind, and then you back into your shorter time frames and milestones. Okay, any questions so far? I hope this is a new concept for some of you, but if it's not, maybe it's just a good refresher as to kind of get you focused, all right? Okay, so here's my SMART goals planning tool, and I am gonna send you a Excel spreadsheet of this. That will be the other handout that you'll get. Again, you can adapt it for your own use. So take a minute and look at this and just tell me if you have any questions. I've even given you some language that you could model your own goals with that get pretty specific. Okay. And I think the depth up here where it's achievable gives you some way to I kind of blended it with realistic just because of my difficulty to see that different. Oh, let me back up. Okay. Okay. And then at the bottom, what there are different ways to do this, but what works for me is that I have some kind of clear, a 5-year goal, again, subject to change, a 3-year goal, a 1-year goal. You can do 2 and 4, whatever you want. I kind of write out, how will I know if I was successful? And then I always like the 6-month goals, and you may have a goal on multiple things. This particular goal is on job search and career change. Okay, you might have one on develop a specific one that's broken down on something like skill building. Okay, so even though the overarching goal could be this job search career goal, you might decide, hey, I need another page just like this for skill building, or I might need another page just for networking. So it depends on how detailed you want to get, but I do caution you to not spend more time in planning than executing. Okay, so what you can do with this is you can just, you'll notice here that it's flexible in the sense that you can have your objectives be different. They can be degree completion, they can be skill building, they can be job search, they can be networking, and they have a due date, and you're specific about the action you're going to take. Okay. Any questions about this? I'm a big proponent of doing what works. So if this format doesn't work for you, you design something that works for you. Okay. And again, don't get so caught up in the planning that you don't actually get things done. Okay. You can spend quite a bit of time in the beginning as you get comfortable with it, but then, limit the amount of time that you spend in planning. If you're going to do a check-in with yourself every 3 months, put it on your calendar, designate an amount of time. Maybe you set aside an hour. But if you've already created your overall plan, then maybe you decide I'm only going to spend about 15 minutes or maybe half of the hour is going to be on, reviewing your plan. And then the second half will be coming up with, kind of measuring. And then really outside of that, that's just an hour. And then the next part where you're going to spend more time is actually doing the actions that you outlined. Sorry, I was a little disjointed there, but hopefully you get the idea. Okay, over time, you should spend more time completing the objectives that are on your plan down here at the bottom than actually in the planning mode. Okay, I love to plan. I can get stuck in planning forever. Okay, so I know this hazard. Okay, all right. So we're going to move on. I'm going to try to go through the rest here. Just a second. All right. So you'll get a copy of that. And then the other thing is, as we talked about, revisit this often. Figure it out, put it on your calendar. Career planning is going to happen twice a year. It's going to happen 3 times a year. Whatever you think you need, adjust your plan as needed. Build in accountability. That's part of the milestones. You'll have due dates. And don't worry if you missed a due date by a certain period. And sometimes you'll have things you decided, hey, I don't need to do that anymore. That doesn't make sense. So don't worry about that. It's not about, having something cast in stone that you have to absolutely do every single thing the way you described it. The point is to generally hold yourself accountable to completing certain things. I'm going to research what data analyst jobs pay. Okay, I'm going to research what the market's like. And you might say, I'm going to do that in 1 month from today. Okay, try to meet that goal. And sometimes you need to have weekly goals. I like to use a Post-it with a career planning sheet like that, so that each week I say, okay, here's my big plan. And bear with me a second. Here's my big plan. And here are 4 things I need to do this week to stay on track with that plan. And it's just very simple 2-word things, okay? Because you can always go back to the plan for detail. Okay, and then you want to stage your next steps, which is an example of what I just talked about. Do this kind of work when it goes best for you. Sometimes it's first thing in the morning for some people. Sometimes it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. If this kind of planning work, evaluating work, or actually working on the things that are on your sheet, you'll know when you have those productive peaks, then schedule it during that time. Don't pick a time when you're totally drained and you just can't keep going, okay? And you can integrate it with other plans. You might, for your whole life, have 3 of those types of plans, okay? And then celebrate your success and celebrate along the way. Okay, so I want to highlight a few things, particularly since some of the career services are changing. I hope you already know about this page, but it's out on the events website, and it is an entire list. I'm going to just see if I can do this smoothly. Apparently not. But anybody not know where the YouTube channel of the webinars is located? Raise your hand or say, I need to know. You don't know where it is? Okay, that is going to be, I'm going to add that to the list of what I send you. You can find it probably by just searching Udacity YouTube, but these are the recorded webinars that the coaches have been doing. I think they go back a few years, and not every webinar, but most of them. And this will be a great resource for you all as things are changing with the career services, because we cover some of this content, okay? So I'll make sure to send you, we'll do the SMART goals and the YouTube link so it's easy for you to find, and a wealth of information out there from some really great coaches. All right. These are 2 that if you liked what you heard today and you want a little more in-depth detail, last year I did 2, April 30th, it's out now. These numbers have changed probably. So look for there's one that talks about change, but I think it was titled something else. I'll have to clarify that. Just a second here. I've got it right here. Okay, it was on career transition. Okay, so the April 30th, 2020 on career transition is one I did that gets a little bit more in depth on the topic of change. And then January 21st last year was entitled SMART Goals. I did that one as well. And so there are many other topics out there done by many of great coaches, and you'll find just really good information in these webinars, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and try to talk about some specific things that might go on your SMART goals spreadsheet, or however you decide to do your career planning. So networking as a habit, I like to say make this a lifelong habit. How many are good at doing this all the time, even when you're not looking for a job? I'm not either, okay? This is where I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth here. I know I should be better at it. I don't do it as often as I should. What you're doing here, ideally, is cultivating relationships. And, you know, some of the students I've talked to is like, well, I feel guilty. I need a job, and why would they want to help me? And so I like to encourage you to think about what you can offer. Maybe not right now, but you're reaching out to people, trying to connect maybe on LinkedIn. When things open up, being able to connect with people in person, going to conferences, attending virtual events, making a personal connection. You might, yes, be looking for somebody to help you right now. And that's okay. You can be honest. Say, I really am impressed about what I see you doing. I'm kind of interested in getting into that field myself. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Would you be a professional partner for me? Hopefully I could return the favor in the future. That's a little bit long. You might choose some of that wording, not all of it, to make your individual connection. And it's just really about relationship building. And if you do that regularly, you do become kind of professional friends. And you find yourself in a situation where somebody may call on you for something. So it's a two-way street. Anybody have anything they want to add about networking? Okay, this should always be in your plan, okay? Okay, keeping things updated is really important in my opinion. You know, skills and knowledge, you know, make sure these things are listed somewhere on your SMART goals. Don't try to tackle each one each time you work on your planning. Space them out over time. You know, decide what's most important to work on this month, next year, 2 years from now. Researching industry trends and keeping up on the market. You might decide, hey, I'm going to do some random searches about these kinds of jobs. Bye, Harvey. Thanks for joining us. All right. Do that industry market research yourself because things change, okay? And so I like to recommend that you keep a file either on your computer or in a drawer somewhere, and maybe both. And the purpose of that file, and you might title it, you know, stuff for my resume or achievements. And you make it easy to put things in there. It might be something as simple as you taught a class on some topic, and you don't want to lose sight of that because the next time it's time to update your resume, you might forget. So any kind of achievement or class you finish or, you know, certificates, then you can easily put it either in your manual file, if that's easiest. You can jot it down on a piece of paper, date it, put what you did, and maybe write some other notes about it, and it can just be a scratch piece of paper and you put it in the file, okay? And then if you might want to have the same thing on a computer, because sometimes you get things by email, it's easier just to put them in there. So then you go to both of those files when it's time to update your resume or apply for a job, and pull them out and say, oh, wow, I forgot all about this. Okay, this is something you can put on your resume. So anyway, and then keep your LinkedIn profile up to date. Okay. Here are some things that I recommend that you practice periodically. So these can be on your goal sheet, however you're doing this, for practicing. And if you know, the point being is what if you had a new opportunity come your way and you were so happy in your current role that you just never applied for a job, you just stayed there, you didn't have to compete for maybe some of your progression in your career, you didn't have any practice interviewing. I've run into people who've had that happen to them for 8 years, 14 years, 20 years, and they had to do one interview and that was it. Practice interviewing, apply for jobs just because. I know that can get dicey, so be a little careful how you do that, but if you're really not looking to leave, but you never know. Apply for a job you might really want to just explore, okay? And if an involuntary job change happens, you'll be more prepared. You will have, I like to recommend you do interviewing at least once per year. And if you don't want to apply for a real job, do a mock interview session, okay? Get a colleague to help you, a coach, maybe even your current supervisor. Maybe they're in on your career plans and just say, can we just do, that job? I want to be this supervisor in the IT department. We've talked about this. Can we do a mock interview for this? I just want to practice. I know there's not an opening yet. Okay, go through the process. Write your cover letter, and that's another thing to keep in that file. Write a draft, and then update it. Okay, even if you're not applying for anything. This takes discipline if you don't have a reason to do it. So I challenge you to make a plan to revisit these things periodically. Okay, and when you're doing your interviewing, make sure you're practicing technical and behavioral questions. Okay. Okay. And the kind of the last really important slide here is change, getting used to change. We need to really challenge ourselves to get out of our comfort zone and try new things. You know, we want to work through, this will help us be ready for things like, what if the unthinkable happened where I didn't have a choice, but they're moving me to a new role, or I didn't even have a job after a certain point. Getting yourself out of your comfort zone along the way, stretching yourself, challenging yourself. You know, if you're not somebody who likes to get up in front of people and talk or present courses, I mean, I found myself there at one point. It's like, I didn't really want to do that. And I had to push myself, and I got to love it, and I got more comfortable with it. I still have a long ways to go, but I enjoy it. And so it's good to really, you know, question yourself. If you're given an opportunity to do something in your role and you're limiting yourself, saying, you know, I'm not going to do this. I can't do this. I don't want to do it. I don't see why this would help me. Then I would encourage you to keep your mind open and just do it. These are the things that will help you become more resilient and flexible. And, you know, one question I get asked pretty often, and I cover this in one of my other webinars, is people who are midlife and beyond say, you know, ageism feels like it's alive and well to me. How do I avoid this? And the one thing I tell them is, you know, in my experience, and I can't speak for every hiring manager, the important thing is to remain flexible and resilient, be open to change. Those are the kinds of characteristics that I would hire for, regardless of somebody's age. I'm really looking for anyone who is open to doing things different, learning new things, staying flexible, keeping their skills relevant over time, and not afraid to try new things. Those are the biggest things you can do to combat what sometimes people call ageism, okay? And I think that I talk a little bit more about that in the career transition webinar that's posted out there. It was done on April 30th, 2020, okay? All right, and keep track of how you challenge yourself. Put change on your SMART goals spreadsheet, okay? Change. Spell out some ideas you have right now for how could I get myself more comfortable with change? What are some thoughts you have? And then as those opportunities come up, or other opportunities, just go for it. And then you can write it down as an accomplishment. And this helps you get more comfortable. Be intentional about getting used to change. And if you need help working through it, you know, get some help, you know, whether that's a coach, a counselor, a colleague, a supervisor, and then do some what if and backup planning, okay? All right, so I know we moved through that pretty quick. We've got just a couple of minutes. Any burning questions or comments or thoughts that you want to share?
Hi, this is Frederick.
Hi, Frederick.
Sorry, I came late. I was confused about the timing, and
Okay, no
I
problem.
thought it was at 11 my
No
time. Will we have a recording of this so you can?
Yes. Yes.
So I can check it later. Okay.
Yes, this will be recorded and posted out on the YouTube site. You should get an email. I'm going to send 2 handouts and the YouTube link out to the people who participated today. The YouTube link is also there in the slides. So you can look at the recording if you need to get it later, but it's let me see if I can just go there right now. I just want to show you. Bear with me a second. I'm not good at this. Maybe somebody can help me here. So let's see. I want to do a new share. Oh, there we go. Okay. Right here. Nope, that's not what I want to share. Just a second. Well, I'm not good at this, so I'm just, see, I should really challenge myself to do it, but for some reason I need to exit the slide presentation. I know that. There we go. All right, see, I figured it out. I think it's right there. There it is. Okay.
Perfect.
Can you see that? I think I've got
Yes.
something else. Okay, there we go. Look at all those.
Okay, excellent.
Overcoming imposter syndrome, finishing, I gotta get this out of my way. Making the most
Yeah,
of your
it was.
Yeah. Okay, so you can see the link right up here, youtube.com, and it is a Udacity channel. I'm not sure what this all means, but that's the link that I'm going to give you. Okay, and these go back. Fireside chat, that one's a good one. That was an outside presenter. Personal branding. Anyway, take advantage of these. These are out there. As far as I know, they will be out there indefinitely for you. And they go back years and years. Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you all for participating. You are a wonderful group, and I wish you all the best. I mentioned this at the beginning, but if you're looking for a coaching session, since I know they're ending this on March 24th, the coaching sessions anyway, Brett Ellis just opened up a bunch on the weekend, and I encourage you to check back daily, as coaches will be opening some up as they can fit them in. Okay, so I hope you're able to take advantage of at least one or two more before the program ends. Any other questions? Oh, thank you, John. That's what I needed to do. Thank you. Appreciate it. John posted the link, you guys. Great. All right, take care. It was nice meeting you all, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Diane.
All right, bye-bye. Yes, you're welcome. My pleasure. Take care. Best of luck to everyone.
You too.